Good morning, boys and girls, and welcome back. We are going to be looking at reviewing chapters 19 through 21, and then we will move on to chapters 22 and 23. So, yesterday was a very sad day. Sarah Ruth passed away. Her dad was beside himself with grief, and so was Bryce. Bryce left with Jangles and they went to Memphis, Tennessee. And they were playing, Bryce was playing the harmonica and having Jangles dance while they earned some money on the corner. They then went to Neil's Diner and Marlene served him a wonderful meal. Bryce was so hungry. And when he got the bill, he realized that he did not have enough money. So that's when Neil came out, and Neil says, you ordered it, I cooked it, Marlene served it, you ate it, now I want my money. And Bryce's response was that he took Jangles and had him dance. He had Edward dance. Well, that didn't go over very well with Neil, and at the end of chapter, let's move on here. At the end of chapter 21, we know that Neil came in and he swung Edward by the feet and swung him so that his head hit the edge of the counter hard. There was a loud crack. Bryce screamed, and the world that it was Edward's world went black. So now we're up to chapter 22. And that probably looks very familiar because that is the front cover of The Miraculous Journey of Ed Tulane. So I'm going to have some questions that I'm going to ask you as your daily quiz after this reading. So here are some questions. Edward's world went black. Describe what Edward was thinking at the beginning of chapter 22. Also, what were the two options that Lucius Clark gave Bryce, and Bryce told him that he could not pay for the repair on Edward? And then we're looking at the cover. What part of the story is this from? Who do you think will open the door? That's just a little, who do you think is going to open that door? And we're going to read this story now. So hopefully you have those questions in your mind for your quiz after the story. It was dusk, and Edward was walking down a sidewalk. He was walking on his own, putting one foot in front of the other, without any assistance from anybody. He was wearing a fine suit made of red silk. He walked down the sidewalk, and then he turned onto a path that led up to a house with lighted windows. I know this house, thought Edward. This is Abeline's house. I am on Egypt Street. Lucy came running out the front door of the house, barking and jumping and wagging her tail. Down, girl, said a deep, gruff voice. Edward looked up, and there was Bull standing in the door. Hello, Malone, said Bull. Hello, good old Rabbit Pie. We've been waiting for you. Bull swung the door wide, and Edward walked inside. Abeline was there, and Nellie, and Lawrence, and Bryce. Susanna, called Nellie. Jangles, said Bryce. Edward, said Abeline, and she held out her arms to him. But Edward stood still. He looked around the room. You're searching for Sarah Ruth? Bryce asked. Edward nodded. You got to go outside if you want to see Sarah Ruth, said Bryce. So they all went outside, Lucy and Bull and Nellie and Lawrence and Bryce and Abeline and Edward. Right there, said Bryce, and he pointed up at the stars. Yep, said Lawrence, that is Sarah Ruth constellation. He picked Edward up and put him up on his shoulders. You can see it right there. Edward felt a pang of sorrow, deep and sweet and familiar. Why did she have to be so far away? If only he had wings, he thought, I could fly to her. Out of the corner of his eye, the rabbit saw something flutter. Edward looked over his shoulder, and there they were, the most magnificent wings he had ever seen, orange and red and blue and yellow, and they were on his back. They belonged to him. They were his wings. What a wonderful night this was. He was walking on his own. He had an elegant new suit, and now he had wings. He could fly anywhere, do anything. Why had he never realized it before? His heart soared inside of him. He spread his wings and flew off Lawrence's shoulder, out of his hands and up into the nighttime sky, towards the stars, towards Sarah Ruth. No, shouted Abilene. Catch him, said Bryce. Edward flew higher. Lucy barked. Malone, shouted Bull. And with a terrific lunge, he grabbed hold of Edward's feet and pulled him out of the sky and rustled him to the earth. You can't go yet, said Bull. Stay with us, said Abilene. Edward beat his wings, but it was no use. Bull held him firmly to the ground. Stay with us, repeated Abilene. Edward started to cry. I couldn't stand to lose you again, said Nellie. Neither could I, said Abilene. It would break my heart. Lucy bent her face to Edward's, and she licked his tears away. That was a beautiful chapter. All right, chapter 23. So this is where Bryce meets a new person. You can see there's Edward / Malone / Jangles. Exceedingly well made, said the man who was running a warm cloth over Edward's face. A work of art, I would say. A surpassingly, unbelievably dirty work of art, but art nonetheless. And dirt can be dealt with, just as your broken head has been dealt with. Edward looked into the eyes of the man. Ah, there you are, the man said. I can see that you're listening now. Your head was broken. I fixed it. I brought you back from the world of the dead. My heart, thought Edward, my heart is broken. No need to thank me, the man said. It's my job, quite literally. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Lucius Clark, doll mender. Your head, may I tell you. Will it upset you? Well, I always say the truth must be met head on. No pun intended. Your head, young sir, was in 21 pieces. 21 pieces? Edward repeated mindlessly. Lucius nodded. 21, he said. All modesty aside, I must admit that a lesser doll mender, a doll mender without my skills, might not have been able to rescue you. But let's not speak of what might have been. Let us speak instead of what is. You are whole. You have been pulled back from the brink of oblivion by your humble servant, Lucius Clark. And here Lucius Clark put his hand on his chest and bowed deeply over Edward. This was quite a speech to wake up to, and Edward lay on his back, trying to absorb it. He was on the wooden table. He was in a room with sunshine pouring in from high windows. His head, apparently, had been in 21 pieces, and now was put back together into one. He was not wearing a red suit. In fact, he had no clothes on at all. He was naked again, and he did not have wings. And then he remembered Bryce, the diner, Neil swinging him through the air. Bryce! You are wondering perhaps about your young friend, Lucius said, the one with the continually runny nose. Yes, he brought you here, weeping, begging for my assistance. Put him together again, he said. Put him back together. I told him, I said, young sir, I am a businessman. I can put your rabbit back together again, but for a price. The question is, can you pay this price? He could not. Of course he could not. He said he could not. I told him then that he would have two options. Only two. The first option being that he seek assistance elsewhere. Option 2 was that I would fix you to the very best of my considerable abilities, and then you would become mine, his no longer, but mine." Here Lucius fell silent. He nodded, agreeing with himself. "Two options only," he said. "And your friend chose option two. He gave you up so that you could be healed. Extraordinary, really." Bryce, thought Edward. Lucius Clark clapped his hands together. "But no worries, my friend, no worries. I fully intend to keep my end of the bargain. I will restore you to what I perceived you to be your former glory. You shall have rabbit fur ears and a rabbit fur tail. Your whiskers will be repaired and replaced, and your eyes repainted to a bright and stunning blue. You will be clothed in the finest of suits. And then, some day, I will reap the return on my investment in you. All in good time, all in good time. In the doll business, we have a saying, there is a real time and there is a doll time. You, my friend, have entered doll time." All right, well, I hope you enjoyed chapter 22 and chapter 23, and I look forward to reading you chapter 24 tomorrow. It's nice that Edward's feeling better. Have a great day, boys and girls.